Have you ever looked at your relationship history and thought, wait, how the hell did I end up here again? Same dynamic, different face. You know
Mm.
better, but somehow you still kind of repeat it. My today's guest built a system that explains exactly why that is happening. It's not about your star sign, it's not about fate, and it's more
Mhm.
about the emotional algorithm that runs underneath it all. Her name is Era Esquerre, and she calls it the Love Map. It's based on evolutionary astrology, but not the kind that you scroll past on your feed. This work is deeper, raw, uncomfortable, and unbelievably clarifying. We'll cover projection, childhood patterns, sacred mirrors, emotional reparenting, and what it actually means to stop chasing love and start remembering who the hell you were before all the chasing even began. Welcome to the Noella Effect.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Hi, Ada. Am I saying it right? It's Ada?
Okay, so the English speakers call me Ada,
Okay.
and I'm from Latin descent. So, but my name is Ada.
Okay, so Ada, you've been around astrology. I've been around astrology
Mm.
my whole life. And sometimes it's been insightful, but most of it, the things you read in the newspapers, online, it's just noise. But the way you speak about it, it actually cuts, it lands.
Hmm,
And I wouldn't
great.
waste any time and I would ask up ahead, what is evolutionary astrology and why is it not the thing that people may expect it is?
Okay, so I think astrology became the downfall of astrology for me was when everybody started using it for predictions. So most people know their sun sign and you read the horoscopes in the magazines and the websites and that's a very superficial way of looking at your chart. So that's one part of astrology that became very, I guess, sellable,
Hmm.
right? Once upon a time, astrology was more important than astronomy, ancient Egypt and ancient Greece. But evolutionary astrology talks more about why you're here. I'm just going to put it in the way that I see it in my terms. The chart is a blueprint of who you
Hmm.
are.
Hmm.
So regardless of how you came into this world, whether your mom had a C-section or an emergency delivery or you were a preemie, you came in exactly at the time that you were supposed to come in
Hmm.
because it's by design. It's a much more in-depth uh, philosophy that there's only one here. There's only one because the creator, God, Allah, whatever is having this experience through each one of us. So we're all mirrors of one another. So we come in to have this one reflection, having this experience. And as you move through your life, you take on all these different characters that are your planets, that are archetypes of you, personalities of you. And that chart, that snapshot of your chart in the moment that you were born, it is perfection. There's no, yes, in astrology, we have planets that we consider are in fall or in detriment. If they're retrograde, we think they're weaker. And there is a space for that, but there's a reason, there's a rhyme and reason for it.
Hmm.
So I've been practicing astrology for a very long time, but for some unknown reason, I always got the clients that wanted to know about their love life. And it was
The
always
juicy,
the
the
same.
juicy questions.
It was always the same. When am I going to meet my soulmate? Why didn't this relationship work? Uh, I feel so alone. Why can't I find somebody that's going to love me? Why is it that I keep ending up with the same person? And you know what? I have to be honest. I hated it. I hated it. I wanted to be a financial astrologer. That's what I wanted
Mm.
to be. But everything in all my bios, everything was, I financial astrology and maybe life path or career, professional life. Nobody cared. Don't you want to know? How about no? I want to know when I'm going to meet my soulmate. Okay. Until one day, my friend, a very dear friend who's a reader, said to me, "Why are you running away from your path? This is your path." I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. My love life is in shambles. I have 2 divorces. I don't know what the heck am I gonna tell people? But that kind of stayed, and I started looking at the chart from a different point of view. And what I started to see was, I mean, I did a lot of research. I didn't just invent this. This is pulled by ancient astrology, modern astrology, and also my experience. So we have the rising, which we need to have in order to look at all the segments of your chart. And the rising, we find it through your exact time of birth. So that's very important for the love map. And because it shows you, that's the door you entered the world of form. And it shows your environment when you were born, how the household was, what kind of household you came into before you even had the mental capacity to form an opinion or even the language skill. So that tells us your immediate environment and what you picked up energetically, let's say, of how people behaved around you. Then we look at the sun and the moon. And the sun is the father figure that you grew up with, that male presence that formed that part in you and how you see men, and how for men, how you intake the masculinity in your life. For women, at the ideal sort of, not so much ideal, but the familiar masculine is. And then you have the moon, which is the mom, the emotions, the more emotional part, which is how your mom or the woman in your life, the maternal presence, showed you how to deal with emotions, how to care, how to be compassionate, these things. The moon is also very close to the earth. So it is what makes us human. It's our attachments, because our emotions come from attachments. So that is the primal triad. And that gives us the basis of how it was when you came in, what was your immediate environment, in the parental influence, whether you actually had biological parents or not. There was always somebody in the household that took on these characters. And then we look at the rest. For the women, for me, it's very important to look at the Venus archetype. And I'm talking about heterosexual couples and heterosexual readings, because it tells us the archetype of feminine that you are. And I've gotten into several very profound conversations about this, as I find, and I'm gonna take a little sidestep here. I find that in our society right now, we live in a time where everybody's always telling us what's wrong with us, especially ourselves, what we need to be fixed, what we need to be upgraded. The coaching industry is huge because, this, right? But here in your map, in your astrology chart, there's nothing to fix. So in ancient astrology, a Venus in the sign of Scorpio is considered to be in detriment.
Right.
You have
right
you
here.
have Venus. Okay, perfect. I love it.
You went off with saying, I've always thought of it that way. I was born premature. I was
Okay.
born with a C-section. And the way you started, the first thing that I said when we opened the episode was, this is not about prediction. But you nailed it there. Yes, I have a Venus in Scorpio. But my next question was just about that. What difference does it make, the Western astrology with the sidereal one? Because the way I explain it to people is that the first one, the westernized astrology, never really worked with me. That was the noise part of astrology in my life, up until I discovered that the planets weren't exactly that way physically in space at the time that I was born. And then I went on and researched sidereal maps and natal charts. And then things started to make sense. And then I was like, okay, what's your experience regarding that? And how do you comment that difference in general?
You're right. You're absolutely right about the Western astrology is behind, because it is still measured where the planets have always been, which is not where they are now. The constellations have moved, they've shifted. So we're basically working, I would say we're basically working with Western astrology with the echoes of our ancestors. That's how I see it. And I feel that Western astrology gives us a part of who we are. We're such complex beings, and we live our lives in human form. So our vision is very different than what we really are. And sidereal astrology is where they are now
Mm.
and how they are affecting us now in this moment in time. I have really wanted to do both because putting those two together gives you a very full view. It's just each one I feel that is part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
But it is correct. I would say that so far for me, as I've been working with Western astrology, I haven't had. I should maybe do your Western astrology chart, see what happens. I haven't had anybody tell me, "Oh, that doesn't resonate with me at all."
Mm-hmm.
Yet somebody did my Vedic chart, and when because my ascendant obviously is different in Vedic astrology,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't know she was using Vedic astrology. So she was, and this was before I even was an astrologer. So because I didn't know anything. So she said to me, "Oh, because you're a Sagittarius rising," and she's going on and on and on. And I'm like, that doesn't sound like me at all. But
Mm.
I was like, okay. And then I asked her, I said, it's very strange. And at the end, she's like, no, because I do something called, I don't do modern astrology. So, but there were some things there that she said they were like very aha moments. So I do feel like both of them are a piece of the puzzle. And I'm glad that you asked me that question because I've been toying with that idea and I find it very synchronic that you brought it up.
Yeah, because when I look at I call it westernized astrology.
Yeah.
When I look at that chart, I'm a Capricorn and I think a Virgo, something like that, but it doesn't really make sense. But when I see that Sagittarius with Scorpio, sorry, no, Scorpio, I see my moon in Leo
Mm.
and I see my my rising as my God, the scales, what's it called?
Libra.
Libra, exactly.
Mm.
It all makes sense. I cannot make a decision. But I also, the Leo is, I'm doing a podcast. I'm not afraid of a camera. I like, performance. And I always did. I always did. And the Sagittarius one is the crazy outgoing part of me. But I have to touch upon the Venus in Scorpio. What's that about? I'm sorry I didn't
Okay.
let you finish. Just
It's fine.
please.
Okay, but first let me clarify something. You said when you said that one shows you one way, the other one shows the other way. Do you know which rising you have in each one?
Yes. Yes. The one in Sidereal is Libra and the other one
Okay.
is Virgo.
Okay. We'll circle back. All right. The planets in detriment or fall for you in Hellenistic astrology, the dignities are very important. So if you have Venus likes to be in either in signs where she's comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So Libra is one of her ruling signs. People with a Libra rising I have never met anybody with a Libra rising that isn't beautiful. I've never met anybody that is not pretty if it has a Libra rising. And so that means your Venus rules the chart, right? In that particular in that particular chart. And then that Venus is very powerful because she's a ruler of your rising. And now we have her in Scorpio, where she's not very comfortable. Why? Because Libra is a sign that likes beauty and balance, and it's very relational. She likes to talk to people, be very comfortable, laugh, be surrounded by pretty things and things that are soft and plushy and pretty
Comfy.
smells and comfy, and and she also rules Taurus, and Taurus is more like the Marilyn Monroe. She likes the chocolates and the
Food.
nature and the food and things touching against her skin. But then she's in Scorpio, and Scorpio is a very profound transformational sign that goes deep into the mud, into things that are hidden and even buried. It also rules sexuality and the certain desires that we have. The eighth house, which is a natural ruler of Scorpio, rules things like kink and sexual deviance and that sort of thing. So, of course, Venus is like, what? I don't want to be here. This is weird. But if you honor all of that in her, even though that's not what the planet rules or is comfortable with, that's a powerful feminine archetype when she is embraced. Because when it comes to love and intimacy, she seeks a partner that is as profoundly phenomenal as she is. So she will then, if she embodies that, she will recognize him and he will recognize her. And that
Mm.
makes a beautiful union, as opposed to the conversation I was having with someone that wanted to change her Venus. She didn't want to be like that because she always felt like she was too much. But in her pursuit of turning that, she had a Venus in Aries, which is also in detriment. She's in fall. She wanted to be more like Taurus. And I said, it's never going to happen. All your life, you've been trying to fit your Venus into a Taurus Venus. And what happens, you keep pulling partners that are way more feminine than you. They don't show up when you need them. They need your help instead of supporting you. You're always saving them. Is that what you want? It's like, no, I'm tired of that. Then embrace the fiery Venus. Be more aggressive. So then the aggressive partner sees you. So those are the things that I like to talk about with my clients. Of there's nothing wrong with you. You just need to embody and embrace who you are in the chart. So for you, it's fantastic that you have that Venus in Scorpio because you're beautiful, because you have, say, the Libra
Thank you.
rising, and then you ask the deep questions and you're not afraid. You don't back off. You have a very powerful energy. Even your voice where's your Mercury?
My Mercury
know?
is also Scorpio.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Scorpio does really, from personal experience.
Mm.
I'm 34 soon to be, and I had to learn how to not just love it. I think I always loved that. Like, I like to say it's kind of a darkness inside me.
Mm.
When I started living it, not, being mean, living the darkness, it sounds wrong,
Mm.
but when I embraced it as the part of me, like, I don't like colors. I like colors in my environment, space. I love nature, but I don't like wearing colors. I'm usually just monochromatic all the way. Same goes with everything else. When I started to follow that path, the path of darkness, the path of my Venus, my Mercury, and myself, actually, then I started to feel that something is blossoming here. This is the path that I need to continue, taking and following. But back to you. You created this thing called the Love Map.
The love map. Yes.
Yeah. And it isn't just another, so to speak, relationship tool. It goes much
Mm-mm.
deeper than that. So, what is it exactly? And why do people keep dating the same person in a
Mm.
different body, like this pattern going on and on and on? So what does it actually mean? Because people often swear that they've no, I've done the work. I've done people call it even shadow work. I've worked on
Mhm.
myself. I know what to do. They go put themselves out. They search for this partner, and they, after a while, realize this is my ex in a different body.
I think this is how I see it. I see that, and this is a bit counterintuitive when you talk to people about it. Not a lot of people are ready for this. When I created the love map, I really thought about what I was creating because it came from my own experience. And when we start from, I need to find a partner, we're already starting in the wrong direction. This type of reading is for people who are ready to take responsibility for themselves. Why? Because when you start looking at yourself and the pieces of you that you push aside, like for instance, you decided, I am just going to embrace the darkness, which, I mean, it sounds terrible when you say it like that, but the darkness is actually very, very precious because in there you get to experience things that most people don't want to look at. And you get to commune with your demons. So you get to know yourself really, really well, and you know your limits and your potential. When you start from that part of I need, I am not whole, I have to have someone, and we've all been there. I mean, we're all been there. And the reason why we do that is because we're biologically wired for that.
And
We have,
society, we're
yes.
conditioned in that regard as well.
Well, we're evolved, but we're not that evolved. We're still living in a cave and running from the tiger. It really, really are. So in order for us to feel safe, we need to have community. And in this day and age, community means a partner. And then in this day and age, love means romance, which is not the same thing. And so you have a society that is running around trying to feel safe, and they feel like the only way they're going to feel safe is if they have the perfect love partner. And what's the perfect love partner? The love partner has to be my best friend, the father of my children, the best lover I've ever had, the person that helps me pay my bills, the person that that I go on vacation with, the person I go party with. It's just too much. We're not wired for that. We're wired for community. And yes, we have gotten to the place where we want to share our lives and share this thing about love. But for me, the most important part of the map is that I see love. Love for me is a point. It's a moment where you become an initiate. It's a point of initiation when there's love. Why? Because when you meet somebody, they're the ones that, when you fall in love, that instant when you meet someone and your eyes connect, that's a biological process. But beyond that, that person stimulates things in you that opens up all your channels, all of them. There isn't any religion or practice that does it like that. Like when you're falling in love with someone, it is the perfect moment to touch the face of God. So when you fall in love, you also then have to contend with fear, which is the opposite vibration of love. Because that person, since it opens everything in you, it opens your fears, it triggers your traumas, the relationship you had with your dad, the relationship you had with your mom, the relationship you had with even your siblings, your household, and everything that could have gone yourself. That person triggers all of that. If you're aware of those triggers, we talk about it and we see, and not even in a way of, okay, this is your Mars is here and it's squaring Saturn, and so you see masculinity as like a cage. We're not talking in those terms. We're talking in different types of terms of how you see masculinity within yourself and what you seek outside of yourself, and what is the balance between those two things. Not in a way to fix you, not in a way that I don't want anybody to think that if they come into a reading with me, then I'm going to coach you. I personally, and please don't come after me, I don't believe in coaching. I don't. On a personal level, I don't.
Why?
Because I've seen people that go to coaches, unless it's for professional reasons. They're yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you need a good coach to guide you. But at a personal level, if you don't know yourself, somebody telling me, and I have to process it from here, that's not going to last. If it doesn't drop in me and I don't feel it in my body, it's not going to work. So that doesn't mean that you go through the love map and you're instantly, oh my God, I've been illuminated. No, like I said, you need to take responsibility for these pieces of yourself. And I can go on and on about that. But you're asking about why do we keep making these mistakes? It's because we keep looking for the same person because we're not aware. I have a client, I just had a reading with a client yesterday that I was having a discussion with her about something that I saw. And I'm telling her, and she's nodding. And at a certain point, she said, I have to stop you because I'm getting emotional because this was a relationship with my father. And I know he loved me, but it was, and yeah, I've always had relationships like that. And it never occurred to me that I kept dating my dad.
Yeah, as weird as it sounds, it's really, really common. It's
very common. It's very common.
You also say that our not just love relationships, but relationships in general in our lives, but mostly our partners, because they're kind of the new family that we form in life. I mean, even after our kids leave, your partner is there to stay. So it's wise. Women and men should be wise in choosing them, but they are also our sacred mirrors.
Yes.
It sounds even poetic, but it's also kind of terrifying. What do people usually see in that mirror that they are just not ready to perhaps face?
Oof. That's a great question. It's kind of harsh. There are sacred mirrors, there are sacred witnesses. So when you meet someone that you fall in love with, you obviously see all the beautiful parts of you, because what you're doing there is that you're identifying things about yourself. And then as the veil of mystery starts to drop, you start to see other parts of this person. And usually there are these shades of personalities that you have in you that you don't really like.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example. I started the Love Map 2 years ago, and it took me a year to tweak it. But then a year ago, I met someone, and it was one of the most inspiring and beautiful relationships I've ever had. And at a certain point, something tragic happened. He got really, really sick, and I almost lost him, and things kind of unraveled. But in that moment, I saw a part of him I hadn't seen. You know, when somebody's sick or somebody's going through a hard time, you actually see everything.
Mm-hmm.
And my first instinct was like, what's happening? Who is this person? And, why is he acting like this? And then I started to really, because I always call him my sacred witness. I realized that he was me when I'm in a stressful moment. I just don't see that.
Mm-hmm.
I see I'm stressed and I don't want to talk to anybody, or I'm stressed and I am doing my thing and I need to concentrate and I need to isolate. And people have told me that, but I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. You're just being dramatic. But then I saw it in him, and I was very lucky and very fortunate that he mirrored that. And I think it's because of the love that I feel for him and the love that he feels for me, that I feel safe in that space to really see it. It's like, this is how everybody else feels around me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've emotionally abandoned them, but that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So a part of me felt that deep compassion for what he was going through and why he was doing it. And another part of me said, okay, I know that doesn't feel good to other people, so I need to stop doing that. And it was like a shift. So
Mm-hmm.
that's your mirror. But you have to take responsibility. Otherwise it's just you are doing this. You are doing this to me. And I don't know if you said you had a Capricorn. You said you had Capricorn something.
By
Mm,
westernized astrology, I'm 26th of December.
mm,
So, like, yes,
okay,
conservatively, I'm a Capricorn.
Capricorn. Okay, I have a Capricorn rising
Mm.
in Western astrology, and a Sagittarius rising in Vedic astrology. But I really identify with that Capricorn because I can be very cold and very distant. It's
Mm-hmm.
just until you get to know me, because my son is in Cancer, so I'm the mom. I'm everybody's mom. But that's I never really saw it until I didn't see it in somebody else. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I mean when I say that the other person is your sacred mirror.
Yeah, I can say that I'm blessed enough to have seen that. I've seen that happen in not just partners, but in friends, family as well. I mean, all the people that you really have strong bonds with, that can be the important people in your life in any way. You can
Mm-hmm.
see that. They can also mirror you in. That's why somebody told me quite a while back that the best thing that you can do for yourself and for the people around you is to be kind and give yourself what you would want the others to give you,
Mm-hmm.
because in that case they and the world doesn't have another choice but to give you what you want as well. It's kind of complicated, but it's actually really
No, no,
simple. I've made it complicated.
no. You have to give yourself grace, so then the world gives you grace as well.
Exactly. Let's talk about this. I mentioned it before as well, this early conditioning. How do childhood dynamics show up in the chart, and how do they equally script our attachment style even
Mm-hmm.
before we know what attachment really is?
Yeah. Okay. So let's say that you have a Leo rising, right?
Hmm.
So you come in and you have a Leo rising. Somewhere in that dynamic in your early childhood, and we're talking about early childhood, things you probably don't even remember. you probably have the sensation in your body, but you don't really remember. If you have a Leo rising and you come in, something in a dynamic in your family teaches you that in order to be loved and accepted and have harmony in the house, you need to be a performer. You need to be on all the time. So you learn what that on is, depending on who you're with, and then you carry that with you. So these are the people that are extremely charismatic, that are not afraid to be in public. A lot of them are actors and singers, and they're in the light because they've learned to adapt to it. And they could be incredibly egotistical because they grew up in an egotistical family. It doesn't mean that all the families are bad. It doesn't mean that you have to also see the other. You have to see, if you have a Leo rising, you have to see where that sun is, because the sun rules Leo, and how that sun is aspected. So if you have a Leo rising with a sun that is in detriment and it's expected, challenged, then you know it was a challenging atmosphere. Or maybe he came into a family that was everything was happy and everybody was on all the time. And so that's what they learned. This is what it is. I'm on all the time. And that doesn't mean that it works for everyone when you grow up and go into the world. Forms part of your personality. Somebody with a Capricorn rising like myself, I was born into a very strict family, and working really hard, being very responsible, and not showing emotions was what allowed me to have harmony in my house. And I was the eldest as well. So I had to be the responsible older sister. And I carry that with me always. I'm always the responsible one.
So we're not really doomed by our chart. We're just, in a way, we can even say that we're kind of haunted by stories no one helped us finish. You've been through 2 divorces and 1 love story that cracked you open. And yet you are not bitter, but very clear, with a great energy. What did this heartbreak that you went through teach you that no training or chart could ever teach?
Okay,
Other than the mirroring that you mentioned.
Okay, well, I had 2 marriages before, and I'm very good friends with my first husband, the father of my children, and he fell in love with somebody else and moved on. So that was very difficult. So throughout that process, it was all about him and what he did to me, right? And I was also very young. And then the second marriage was toxic. And there was a lot of not so good attachments, but I couldn't see them. And then I decided to stay alone for a long time. I was alone for about 10 years. And in those 10 years, I would always ask myself, okay, why did I allow these things? And that's when astrology came into it. But when I started this relationship, I think that maybe subconsciously, because I had been alone for so long, I wanted to put my best foot forward. So I made a choice. No matter what happens, and I also have to give credit to my partner, we have to be transparent. And boy, was that hard for me. It was very challenging for me. So, and during the process of the relationship, especially when things were really bad, because he was really sick, you don't want to burden the other person. You're going through a hard time. I mean, I personally, this year has been very challenging for me at a personal level, which actually helped me develop the chart even more. I didn't want to tell him, man, this sucks. It sucks.
Yeah, you're in a bad situation as it is, and now I don't want to pile it on.
Exactly. But it was a huge transformation for me to start, letting out, I feel this way. Our favorite phrase is, this is how I am living this. I'm not saying that you are doing something wrong, but this is how I'm living it. And so that's what I started. That's what I've learned through it. It wasn't easy, and it's a complex story, but I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks. You also said that our charts are not broken. It is what it is, as I like to say.
Yes.
And learn how to work with it. And you like to say your chart is not broken. You just strayed from your blueprint. And that hits. That really does. How does that look in a practical manner? How do we know when we're off track?
Okay. Well, what I was telling you before is a perfect example. I'm a Saturn rising, I'm a Capricorn rising, and I have Saturn in the third house. And my third house is Pisces. Okay. And my Saturn is conjunct Chiron. For anybody out there that knows astrology, you understand how powerful that is. So you have a Saturn in a sign where nothing is clear.
Mm-hmm.
Saturn is very forward. It's very serious. It creates structures. It's an earth sign. It's very solid. It is the planet of discipline. It is the planet of construction. It's the planet of systematic creation, let's say. So here comes this very disciplined father, because he's called the father of time, and he moves slow because he wants to construct something that is going to be solid. And he sits in a house that is the house of language, understanding, communication. And so the communication becomes very cold. It would be a very cold communication, a very structured communication, kind of like a sergeant. But this third house is ruled by Pisces. And Pisces is murky and it dissolves. It's unclear. It's another realm.
Swim away.
Yes, it's another realm. It's a realm of fantasy. It's the realm of dreams. It's a beautiful realm. But Saturn there is kind of lost because he can't see his way through. So for me, communication was always very difficult to say how I felt. To also because in my house you weren't seen. I mean, you spoke when you were spoken to. And so for me, that was very difficult. Going back now to what you're asking me is that I learned that in order for me to honor that Saturn in the third house in Pisces, I would have to then take everything that I download from the realm of fantasy and the beyond and translate it into something that was practical and build something that is solid, so then I can communicate it to other people and bring it from that realm and transform it into the world of form. That wasn't easy because first, for me to be able to have discussions about emotions and things like that is not something that was easy for me, but I had to learn. And also how to speak to people about how I felt without coming across as the sergeant that is accusing you of something. To be able to use that Saturn to be able to communicate in a very clear way, but also that Pisces, so the delivery would be with compassion. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's interesting when you have such opposing planets or signs in various houses. I've seen my chart on multiple occasions, but it's been a while now. And yeah, I do have a few confronting situations. For example, I cannot tell you in I'll say in your language, what does it actually mean? How does it look like? But I know that I'm extroverted, but I have this introverted part that my battery, social battery, does indeed have a limit. And when it drains, I'm out. I just, go into my cave. I need to recharge. So, but recognizing that and respecting that, because that's the way I am. I'm not harming anybody by this. This is not something that I even wish to work on because there's no point. It's how my persona has developed. But it makes me think about the collective, the majority of your clients, let's say. And what would you say is the most common, this evolution spiritual journey? People have different names for the same thing, but what part and what phase of their journey are your clients mostly stuck in? What's the most common thing that you see?
Do you mean stuck in what sense? In like at what age or in what areas of their lives?
I'd say if you have somebody that's on a spiritual journey, they just started to unravel these deeper parts of themselves, started doing people like to call it shadow work, started knowing themselves, getting to know themselves. And of course, that's always was a path. It's not it's a journey. And it doesn't really seems to have a destination. At which point, or at which area, should I say, do they mostly, other than love, because we determined that's the most common question that they
Mhm.
pose, but other than love,
Mm.
in which area of their lives they're completely stuck? What's the most common area that's popping up?
Well, I over and over again, I see people don't really accept. They accept all the negative stuff about themselves, but not the good stuff. It's
Mm,
almost like they don't really believe. We're not really wired for some reason to believe in ourselves. And so self-love and self-appreciation it's not common. It's a challenge for most people. They could say, yeah, that kind of sounds like, yeah. I mean, I would love to be that way. No, but you
mm,
are. I mean, your chart, there's a self-created limitation of what you feel that you can and cannot do. Not everybody is like that, but most of the people, that's where they hit the obstacle. Even once they've let go of it's the other person's fault and they take responsibility, they still don't know if they're capable of overcoming whatever they need to overcome because they don't think that they can, or they don't think that they're good enough, or they don't think. Also, mm, my clientele is usually women and men who are over 40 and on. I really don't get that many younger people, and the few that I've done readings for, we're talking about 25-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 35 years old. I find they have less of a problem in that area. In fact, I think that they have the opposite problem. But yes, the self recognition, they really get stuck there.
mhm.
They can they can see all the flaws, but they can't really see the positive.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it could do a lot with the upbringing as well, because the quote unquote older generations,
Yes.
especially when you look at Gen X, most of those people were conditioned to, shut up, do your work, and, don't talk
Hmm.
back. And then you have the
Yes.
millennials, my generation, we're all over the place. You have all the variants of old generations in
Mhm.
one generation, they're millennials. We're very colorful. And then you
Yes.
have now I'm gonna sound like, I don't know, a boomer and say the younger generations are so full of themselves.
They are.
Of course, that's I'm generalizing here, but yeah, it has become like the pendulum. It kind of swings from one
Yes.
part to the other, and the middle ground just sometimes doesn't exist. But it makes you think also about that's really common to talk about these days, and that's the loneliness epidemic that we're living in. So ghosting has become normal.
Hmm.
Intimacy is not just taboo, but terrifying. And it's super interesting to me, like spiritually and economically as well. Where is this leading to? Because the younger generations are just not interested in anything for some reason. They lack interest, especially in love. Like, it's better for me to, stay alone, and I'm just going to stay alone. But then you're lonely. And this kind of this circle that just keeps on repeating.
It's a problem. One of the issues, there's several issues. One of the issues is choice. We've
Mm,
never had as much choice as we have now.
mhm,
When we talk about dating, there's the dating apps and there's all these different sites. And so before you used to date because you had a goal in mind. You wanted to meet
mm,
somebody, you wanted to have a relationship, you wanted maybe get married or not, but you were looking for something more. Now, with all these apps and all these choices, people date for the fun of dating.
mhm,
So there's rarely is it that people are dating because they want to come in. In fact, when you were dating online, that's mostly what people say. Just, I'm just here to see what happens.
mhm,
And so there's no investment. And also there's a social thing, which that I find it very troubling because our society has changed so much. Women don't need to get married anymore.
mhm,
And more women are choosing not to because they don't need to get married because they have careers. The statistics show that women are becoming more educated than men, so it's
mhm,
flipping.
mhm,
And so they're thinking, what do I need to get married for? I can just date, have fun, I have a lot of choices. And then
Mhm.
I come home and I don't have to take care of anybody. I don't have to cook for anybody. Nobody tells me what to do with my money. Nobody tells me what to do with my time. And so it's also changing the roles with men. And it's it's difficult for men because they don't
Mhm.
know what their role is anymore. So we
Mm.
sometimes get upset at them because, they don't know what to do, or they act like, jerks. But the truth of the matter is a lot of them don't know what their roles are anymore, especially the younger ones. Young men don't know how to date. They don't
Mm.
know how to date. They don't know what to say. It's very awkward for them.
Mhm.
So we now live in a society of hookups, just hook up. And that's how they get like a bit of intimacy. And so it's a problem. It's concerning.
Yeah. To be quite honest, I expected more of this. I know it's just started, the age of Aquarius. I
Mm.
know it's just started, but I expected more. I'm disappointed. It's been what, 10 months? What is happening? I had
Look,
so much faith. I had so much faith.
look, it's going to take a very long time.
Yeah.
And it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. If we're going to look at it from the astrological point of view, we have a lot of the outer planets ingressing into new signs, which is very
Mm.
rare when they all ingress within months of one another. So we're going to be seeing a massive shift in the collective. Yes. Also, with all the political turbulence we're experiencing
Mhm.
around the world, it's creating massive migration issues, immigration issues. So that's going to change a lot of the mentality, but it's going to take a long time. And
Mhm.
when the Aquarius age started, we all knew that it wasn't going to happen from one day to the next. I have noticed that there's an awareness in terms of people are more curious
Mhm.
about, is this all there is?
Mhm.
Is me going to work and making money and buying the big house and having the expensive car and going to the really nice vacations and living in a nice neighborhood? Is that all there is? Is there more? Because it's not
Mm.
enough. I am seeing that more and more. So there is a change. I don't know if we're going to see it I don't know if I'm going to see it in my lifetime, but I already feel the winds of change. I do.
Yeah, I have to agree on that. As you said, on the curiosity part. And the good thing is, when we compare it to the last Age of Aquarius, when the French Revolution happened, everybody was talking about that part. Like, when Age of Aquarius hits, everybody was, counting the minutes. There were countdowns. Like, when it starts, we're all gonna be free, because everybody was looking at the French, how they killed the king and went on with it. But yes, I suspected as well that this is going to take a while. But I'll have to circle back on the other part that personally really interests me is, we're in the age of Aquarius by the Western astrology, but by the sidereal one,
Mhm.
we're in the age of Capricorn, right?
Yes, because I always see it as the Vedic is behind,
Uh-huh.
like it's moving back. So it's behind.
Yeah.
Yes, so it'll be in Capricorn.
Yeah, so usually it is just that one. I mean, for my chart at least, not for all planets,
Yeah.
but for some, it's usually just that one. But honestly, it doesn't really feel like the age of Capricorn. It feels, actually, to me at least, it really does feel like the age of
Mm.
Aquarius has, you know, as you said, the winds of change have started.
Okay, also
So,
depends on what degree it would be.
mhm,
I think oh god, the word escapes me. We call it degrees, but they call it something else. I can't remember which is the placement of where the degree is, how we're moving. Depending on where it is, it tells us at what level we're arriving. For instance, for me, Capricorn is about constructing something and going to the top of the mountain, because
mhm,
that's where it is in the Western astrology. But then once you go up, you have to start coming down. So depending
mm.
on where gosh, oh god, no, I'm nuts at it.
So it's not the degree.
Yeah, it's a degree, but in Vedic astrology they call it something else.
Can't help you there.
The
Sorry.
shaktas, the shaktra, the
Okay. Okay.
shaktra. Depending on what shaktra it is at this moment, then you could say what period of Capricorn we're in. in Vedic
Okay.
astrology. So it could be a moment of dismantling,
Mm-hmm.
entering
Mm-hmm.
into then Aquarius, which is the change for a better tomorrow, which is the 11th house. It's a long-term view,
Mm-hmm.
working more in community and being more in resonance with one another instead of just me, just Capricorn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting. What would you say that's the most misunderstood thing about astrology in general?
Okay. People think that planets make you do things. It's like, oh,
Mhm,
you got to tell me that, because you can't tell me that this planet is making me. Your planet is not making you do anything. Your planets are a reflection of who you are.
mm,
That it doesn't. And yes, I guess we could see it as a predictive tool when you look at the transits,
mhm,
where they are in your chart and what aspects they're making to your personal planets, or what aspects they will be making to your personal planets. We
mm.
could say, this could signify that this and this and that can happen. But yeah, I hear that a lot. Well, the planets can't make me do anything. You're telling me that no, it's a reflection of who you are.
What about the impacts of, for example, the most popular one is Mercury in retrograde.
Yes.
So they impact all of us at the same time. Quite recently, actually, I saw a video of the partner, the boyfriend, trying to be supportive of his partner that's into astrology. He's okay. Are you all right? Is Mercury in? And then he says a stupid word or something that doesn't make any resemblance to retrograde. Is everything so? This collective impact. How impactful are they really?
Okay, let's be very transparent and honest here. Mercury goes retrograde several times a year.
Mm-hmm.
It does impact you, but it's not as impactful as, I would say, the outer planets. I find
Mm-hmm.
those much more impactful because
Mm-hmm.
they move so slow. And when they go retrograde, then maybe they go retrograde once a year,
Mm-hmm.
and they last longer than Mercury retrograde. Mercury is a very fast moving planet because it's right after the sun.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, you could have an impact, and depending on where your Mercury is and how your Mercury is, let's say that you have Mercury retrograde
Mm-hmm.
natally. So when Mercury goes retrograde, it's more in harmony with your Mercury. And if you have a Mercury, I don't know, in the third house, which is well placed there, and it happens to be a sign that he rules or he's exalted in, even if Mercury is retrograde, for me, it reveals things that you hadn't seen before. So it's not all negative and doom. Things like, okay, for instance, Saturn just went retrograde yesterday.
It did.
And yes, Saturn went retrograde
Okay.
yesterday. And it's in Aries now, and it's going to move back into Pisces. So I felt that way more than when Mercury goes. Sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, Mercury is retrograde, and I'm an astrologer.
Yeah.
So when I see all these people making this big deal out of everything,
Yeah, but it makes sense. It makes sense for the outer planets that do have a greater impact on the collective.
so the things that you
I'm
need to look at is what planets. Okay, so let's say you have a Libra rising, so the ruling planet there would be Venus. So when Venus goes retrograde, it has greater impact in you.
Mm.
Or let's say your sun is, what did you say your sun was? Virgo or
Sun is Sagittarius.
Sagittarius. Okay. So when Jupiter goes retrograde, because it rules your sun sign, it has probably more of an impact on you than Mercury.
Yeah.
So you have to be attentive and informed as to, it's not just a blankety thing.
So I'll have to ask you, in the recent years, and I'm guilty of this as well, the astrology connected apps on our phones, Pattern, for example, the one that I have, I really like them. And mostly they do give me some insight, but I don't read them every day. I like to think that when I feel, I read it because I feel that this day I have to read my impact or whatever. But in general, do you like them? Do you approve them?
I often look at them because as an astrologer, I like to be informed. I don't know everything. Sometimes I read them and I think, That's really interesting. I had thought about that. And
Hmm.
sometimes I read it and I'm like, well, you're not telling me anything. So I
Hmm.
think that how you do it is good. You have this intuition of going to see it. I wouldn't check on him every day.
Hmm.
I wouldn't think that they're gospel, but
Hmm.
I think that every so often you do get a very synchronic message with them.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that I mean that's something a friend of mine also has. She just recently discovered Pattern, and I was like, yeah, you have to. It's a really cool app, but don't read it every day. And she was like, okay, so when am I supposed to? When you feel like it, when you
Mhm.
just see that notification stand out in any way. And she was like, okay, I'll try that. So Ada, your work is it's actually really serious, but you come across really calm, like someone who's made even peace with chaos in a way. How do you
Absolutely.
personally it's a good thing and something that I should recommend. It's something that I 5 out of 5 I would
Mm,
recommend. Make peace with your chaos, make peace with the chaos in the world because you ain't
mm.
escaping it. How do you stay grounded day to day?
Okay. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't, I usually tell everybody you need to have some sort of practice, right? And I've tried, I used to meditate religiously and I'm a very good meditator when I do it. But in the past year, the way that I stay grounded is through my work.
Mhm.
I really love what I'm doing. And so I stay very connected with the work that I do astrologically and the work that I do at a soul level.
Mm.
Because I am going through my second Saturn return, and it is in ancient astrology is when you start preparing for death. It's not, I'm not being dark, but it's about the legacy that you leave. And one thing I've always been is that I've always had a very curious mind since I was very little. I became self-aware when I was 5, where I looked at myself and I thought, what am I doing here? Why am I in this body? And why am I living with these people? It happened in a flash and then it went away. And that I was always curious, wanting to know the mysteries and what
Mhm.
am I doing and what's really real. Just to give you an idea, my Bible is the Matrix. Whenever
Mhm.
I need some kind of guidance, I just watch them. I lost count how many times I've seen this movie. So
It's a
for
good movie.
me, I really do need to better understand why I'm here. And that's the work that I do every day, either with astrology or with my esoteric research.
Yes, it's really, really beautiful. I like how you
Thank you.
put it. What part of your own charts has, other than the you mentioned communication, but other than that, which part has been hardest for you to embrace? Not as an astrologer, but as a human, as a woman.
Are you talking about my personal chart?
Yeah.
I think that for me, the hardest thing has been to overcome that Saturn
Mm,
because it has a big personality in my chart,
mm,
and I've lost a lot of people because of my lack of emotional transparency and because I didn't open my mouth. So it took a very long time for me to break out of that. That was
mm.
the hardest thing for me to overcome. And I knew from when I started studying astrology that that was a point of contention for me. But it took a long time before I was able to actually say, okay, this is what I need to do.
Mm.
As silly as that sounds, because
Yeah, I mean,
when you,
it
yeah,
may sound silly to someone, but
yeah,
we all live from our own bodies and skins and minds.
right,
So, yeah.
yeah,
But let's flip a script a tiny bit. If you
okay.
weren't doing this, if you weren't an astrologer, and if
Hmm.
astrology by some miracle, bad miracle, didn't exist, what would you do instead?
I always wanted to be an archaeologist.
So cool. So cool. I get the curious mind now. Makes perfect sense. Yes.
Yeah. I had a dream when I was very young that I will never forget this dream. I was in the middle of the end of the world. The world was ending, and I could hear the structures crumbling and things were exploding. And man, we were all gathered in a tavern. And there were a whole bunch of people there that I had never seen, but we were all
Mm,
singing because the end of the world was coming. And I looked around me, and even though I don't remember anybody in that dream, I loved everyone in that dream. And there was a woman that had a long gray hair, and she said something to me. She said, "Okay, so now we're gonna cross over. What are you gonna do when you get to the other side? What do you want to be?" And I said, "I need to be an archaeologist because I missed the mark in this life." And she said, "Okay, then you'll be an archaeologist." And that always stuck with me.
So
Always
cool.
stuck with me.
So cool. I started a tradition on this podcast where,
Mm.
as the final question I ask my guests, is if you had access to the bathroom mirror of every person on Earth, what would you write on it? You can write just one sentence. What would you write?
Please love yourself.
Yeah,
Very
that
simple.
strikes home.
Please love yourself
Don't forget to love yourself
first. Please love
first.
yourself first.
Yeah. Just I like to tell to my friends and family that in order to love others, you have to love yourself. And a very good metaphor for that is in airplanes. Put your mask first so you can,
That's right.
God forbid that ever happens, but if it ever happens, you need to put your mask
Come on,
first.
who can forget Samantha in Sex and the City? That famous phrase, "But don't you love me anymore, honey? I love you, but I love myself more."
Yeah, Samantha. Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
times a lot of times she didn't miss it at all, at all.
Mm-mm.
She just hit home. Ada, thank you. Thank you for an
Thank you,
amazing
Christina.
conversation. It's been a beautiful ride. And for my viewers, if your pattern keeps repeating, it's not bad luck. It's not just Mercury or whatever in retrograde. It's probably some unprocessed memory. And Ada won't predict your future, but she can show you what you've been reenacting, repeating, and such according to your blueprint. So if you're ready to stop looping the same patterns on and on, book your love map session with Ada. Everything you need is down below and will lead you straight to her. This was the Noel
Thank you.
Effect, and I'll see you all in the next.
Thank you, Christina.
If you like what we do here, please consider subscribing to the Noel Effect. Hit the like button. It really helps the channel and me to continue doing what we do. Thank you for listening.